I actually kind of got turned on to education clear back in my early teens when I walked by a school of young people who were developmentally disabled and just went up to the fence and started talking with some of them and found out that I could volunteer. So I started as a volunteer at 14. So I knew I wanted to be an educator from the beginning, and it was a great profession for me. I taught 39 years.
We had known each other, and I knew that she had gone to Peru on vacation. I didn't know about Heartwalk, what she was trying to do there, but she came into the spa and she said, we are gathering things to take down to these people in Peru. And so would you be willing to donate toenail clippers? And she brought in some photos. Those photos just totally touched me. Didn't know there were people like this in the world, and that's how we initially became involved with them and have been involved every year since.
Yeah, it was a humble beginning, to say the least. In our first trip there, one of the very first things they asked for were schools. Well, we had fingernail clippers, That was how much we could afford, and we just said, we can't do schools. This is not a possibility for us right now.
They had the goal from the beginning to educate the children because the Peruvian government was not supporting the education of the Q'ero people. I think it was in 2005, which was the year that my mother died. That was the initiative of that year, is to build an elementary primary school. And I said to Dave, I want to build a school down there and dedicate that to my mother.
One of our donors who loves education dedicated a donation to help start that school.
I still get emotional about it, so forgive me, but it was amazing. I'll never forget. We'd hiked for hours to get to that village, and then the villages are so small. It's literally you're upon them before you know you're there. That's how it felt like to me. And the day we hiked in, it was misty. The mist come up from the jungle, and so the afternoons can be really cold and kind of full of mist in the air and clouds. And so it had this really, I would call it almost a melancholy feel to it. The altitude is such, there's not trees, not a lot of green, and it's just, a lot of rocks and hillsides, and the mountains are ginormous out there behind the village. And so it came in around the community building and on the trail, and it came around and there was the school. It was incredible, and it was so bright on this melancholy day. Brightly painted, looked fresh, and of course then in the village it's all gray and stone and very subdued, and it was just this beacon.
That was our very first classroom, and then it was our first community classroom in Yanaruma, and then starting to support the two little classrooms that were in Hapu Grande, and then our first classroom in Cochamarca, and we were on our way.
There's a fantastic picture. Dave is standing there, and there's like 6 little children. They don't speak the same language, but they're connected because of that school.
We discovered that the government has a written law that says if you run a school for 7 years, the government has an obligation to take the school over.
Penelope was kind of worried because the men were starting the construction on a school that wasn't yet funded. She was really emotional about it, and so I took a moment and I went out by that lake. I sat out on a rock overlooking that lake, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, these people need a school so bad. And so at the time it was about $8,000 to $10,000 to fund a school. So I came up to her and I said, you know what I've decided to do is that I'm going to personally fund that school. So I did. So that school is really special to me, being here on Yanaruma.
We've built a complete infrastructure in their communities with them. They partner with us by doing the volunteer labor. We don't pay them for their labor. They go out, they do their fields, they do their animals, and then they come home and they make adobes, and they carry sand and they carry rocks, because that's how motivated they are to have those schools for their kids. The fact that we've built all these schools and the government has had to take them over is kind of, it's a little bit staggering, you know, what's been accomplished through the donors for Heart Walk Foundation. Now, they really have a sense we can go to Lima, we can represent our people, we can talk to them. We have schools, we have a community, you know, we deserve to have this. This is a right that people in our country have.
Some of those kids that are getting educated in those schools are starting, you know, they're becoming young adults, and they're seeing their future now. They're seeing an opportunity that maybe they can go on with education somewhere else. And to me, that's part of the sustainability issue here, is because what's going to happen to these villages? I mean, how are they going to take their own control of their own future? And so I think it's going to be these children who get an education, and now they can serve their own villages, and they can decide what their future is going to look like.
I remember a speech by a father that was a real tearjerker, where he said, we no longer have to live like ignorant people, because now our children are getting educated. It gave the entire community a sense of national belonging and value for their group.
There are so many ways to donate and to help. It doesn't have to be a big amount of money. It doesn't have to be a project. But it does help when you say, I can do something. I don't have to do everything, but I can do something.
Since its founding 15 years ago, the Heart Walk Foundation has established many schools in the high Andes communities of Peru. There is still more to be done. In 2020, Heart Walk hopes to finish the last and final classroom in the Hapu High School, along with kitchens, dining rooms, and dormitories for the teachers who come so far from their homes and families to teach these kids.
The sacrifice that we make here to have something good happen there is so small compared to the daily sacrifice that they make all the time.
Our goal for 2020 is to complete the high school to government standards so it'll be sustainable and funded by the state. This entails construction the school's fifth and final classroom, along with teacher dormitories and dining areas for the village schools. But we need your help. The timeline to secure government funding is 2021. If we achieve this goal, all of the classrooms will be sustained by the Peruvian Ministry of Education. Help us give the Quiro nations recognition. Help us secure their education for future generations.
García.